Oberyn is dead.
And this Lannister girl skips about the water gardens, eating our food, breathing our air. How many of your brothers and sisters do they have to kill?
Let me have her, Doran.
Prince Doran is a character who is very committed to the well-being of his people. His brother was killed, and he would love to seek revenge for that the same way Ellaria would love to seek revenge for that. But he realizes that as a prince and as a ruler of these people, he owes them better than that.
I think part of the reason Oberyn was able to be as free and as much of a wild child as he was is because he wasn't the oldest son. You know, he wasn't the Prince of Dorne. He wasn't responsible for ruling that country, whereas Doran just wants very badly to do what is best for his people. And that genuinely means subsuming your own personal interests and your own personal desires and ruling in a kind of quiet, diplomatic fashion.
The question that Ellaria asks is basically, is he strong enough to do what needs to be done? Is his calculation and policy, are those really weakness and hesitation disguised? And Ellaria thinks they are.
I returned to the capital to pay my respects to my brother, and to you, and to serve the king. I did not return to the capital to serve as your puppet, to watch you stack the small council with sycophants.
Cersei is very used to manipulating the people around her, with the exception of her father. She's been very adept at manipulating everyone, and in the small council scene, she's really starting to feel the absence of Tywin Lannister.
Now with the death of Tywin, I think in her mind, all these vultures are now flying into King's Landing to peck at the corpse and take over. She's very wary of anyone who's going to try to push her into the corner and dismiss her as the Queen Mother. She's not going to let that happen.
She comes up against her uncle Kevin, who's made of sterner stuff, who won't be played the way that these other people allow themselves to be played, who actually disrespects her to her face and walks out of the small council chamber, which is behavior she is unused to experiencing and being able to do nothing about it, which in this case she really can't.
Guragon jazdano, glyson aochani sostaur. Ziri aixia, vitriiris.
Shishilolshka ye vitril.
Vitriis.
There always seemed to be this sense of manifest destiny with Dany, and that she was going to take what was hers by fire and blood. And she has, but there's a difference between taking and keeping. And there's a difference between conquering and ruling, and she's finding out that the latter is much more complicated. It's impossible to rule over a city as large as Meereen without infuriating certain people.
Dany is trying her very best to do the right thing, to be a good ruler, and sometimes within the context of this world, being a good ruler means doing things like executing Mosador. It's about laying down a justice that's blind and impartial and applying it evenly to everybody, former master or former slave.
And in this case, with Mosador, it's very complicated for her because she has a great deal of affection for this young man who was a slave until she came, and that's the reason he was selected to represent the freed people on her council. And he's been a strong ally of hers, and yet he disobeyed her. So from her mind, she's making a very hard-headed but fair decision. And in the minds of the freedmen and women watching this execution, she's turning on them, and she's executing one of her children, one of the people who called her Misa.
When she steps up and actually does that, of course, she finds that she doesn't win any friends for her blind justice and her commitment to the law, that she alienates her supporters, and the people who hated her hate her just as much as they did before. So it's one of those things where doing the right thing doesn't have any immediate rewards associated with it. It just leads to a riot that almost gets her head caved in with a bunch of rocks.